Well, well, well.
Hello everyone and welcome to Action RPG. I'm your host Aaron, and for today's video we're headed to the world of Diablo IV once again. Another 10-minute interview has been sent to me and I have not watched it. This is a true reaction video. The person that keeps giving me all this great content, please continue to do it. I really appreciate it. We're just gonna jump right into it. 10 minutes, player choice, D4, go.
Diablo IV is a love letter to our fans. We've really focused on this theme of returning to dark.
Whoa, I'm sorry. I don't know if you caught that. D4 is a love letter to our fans. What was Diablo Immortal? Sorry, continue.
And we know that when we make a Diablo game, fans have a lot of expectations from D2R and Diablo 3 and previous Diablo experiences that they've enjoyed. So we know that we have a lot of things that...
D2R, Diablo 3, and other, he didn't say Immortal, sorry.
That really just need to be there, but also bring them into the most modern versions of themselves. Hi, I'm Joe Shelley, game director for Diablo IV.
And I'm Rod Ferguson, the general manager of the entire Diablo franchise. And we're here today at Blizzard Entertainment, hanging out, and we're going to talk about Diablo IV and the whole franchise.
What's up, guys?
Diablo IV is really all about choice, and it really manifests in all different aspects of the game.
One of the things that in the previous Diablo games, they worked with iconics, and so there was this like, oh, you're this barbarian that's known from the history or the lore of the game. And now with the player customization, you create your barbarian. You can choose what they look like, what gender, hair, makeup, all the stuff that you want to do to really truly make it your barbarian. And so you can kind of create your own backstory. And then from that, you're in and choosing your skills, and you can choose very...
Character customization so far looks the best I've ever seen in an action RPG.
Different skills that that really make it your own. Where sort of like Diablo 3, which is great, but it sort of tied a lot of what you did to your gear. And so if you wanted to change your abilities, you just changed what you had equipped. And that's not the case in D4. Obviously gear is still very important to your build, but it's really about your skill selection that defines you. And then you take those choices into the game. The story is non-linear, so you can choose how to play out the story. You're in a shared open world. You can choose to go exploring instead of doing the story if you want to. You can go anywhere you want within Sanctuary and go do dungeons, or go do other things and take on a world boss, or go do a local event. So you have choice there. And then you have PvP.
Wait, before he gets to the next point, we talked about this thoroughly in last night's podcast, that this game is going to feel more like an MMO than an action RPG. It's kind of more of the Lost Ark. It's a non-linear path. You don't have to do everything. You can go collecting. You can go to this part of the world. Very MMO-like.
PvE versus PvP. So do you want to go and take on the story, campaign content, or do you want to go and fight other players? And it's one of our sort of PvP areas. And then who do you want to play with is a choice, right? You can play solo. It's a great game solo, but you can party up. Everything along the way is really about what you decide you want to do. And so that's why we talk about D4 is about choice, is because pretty much every step along the process, there's some things that you have agency over, and you can decide how you want to play the game.
Static charge.
All of the classes in Diablo 4 have this sort of unique feature that's unique to just that class. And the Necromancer has the Book of the Dead, where you decide, oh, I can have skeleton warriors. What kind of skeleton warriors do I want? Do I want aggressive, defensive? Do I want ones that create corpses for me to use as sort of raw materials? And then, you can have mages. Okay, what kind of mages do I want to use? And I can have golem. What kind of golem do I want to use? And so you can mix and match your warriors, your mages, and your golem to really create and customize the army that you have with you. And you never really had that experience before. And that's what really is one of the things that makes the new Necro really unique and interesting. I like to talk about Diablo 4 being the culmination of the franchise because it wants to respect the past. And so when you look at kind of what goes into Diablo 4, I like to use the formula that it feels like it's the dark tone of Diablo 1. It's the progression of Diablo 2. It's the visceral combat of Diablo 3. And then it has its own unique innovations in Diablo 4 with the shared open world and all the things we talked about with player choice.
I think there are ways...
And the shop of Diablo Immortal.
There are lots of ways that we've looked at lessons learned from previous games too. One of the great innovations we made with legendary items, and again, speaking to that idea of having multiple builds available, is that you can take legendary power off an item and move it to another item. So it really opens up the ability to customize your gear.
We don't talk about that enough. You know, in previous games, like you would pick up a shield that have this thing that would make, like, can now summon 2 more skeleton mages, and you're like, oh, I have to keep this for as long as possible. My build needs those 2 extra mages, and eventually your level would outpace it, and you're like, I don't want to give up the shield. I'm going to carry this shield even though it's weak because I want this ability. And now in Diablo 4, you can actually extract that off the shield, get a new legendary that's at your level, and put that onto it. And so that idea of being able to hold on to your build and be able to truly customize your character by taking legendary powers, extracting them from one thing and imbuing them into another, that fundamentally changes the build system.
That actually is pretty cool. I haven't decided if I'm going to love it or hate it yet, because normally you're hunting for that one item that has that legendary ability on it. So does the loot system not feel as good or as fun, or the hunt not feel as great, knowing that you could just mix and match and basically craft uniques? Time will tell. Halfway done.
So one of the things that's really exciting about Diablo 4 is that because we have this shared open world that exists as a template, the dungeons are actually in places in the world that you're going to explore, and those gives those dungeons a real sense of place. So when you go into a particular dungeon, you're going to see the tile set that's associated with that dungeon, that type of art. And we have a wide variety of art for these, and you're also going to see the monsters that live in it. But when the dungeon rolls, it is randomly generated within those parameters. The monsters will be differently configured. You're going to see different champions, you're going to see different affixes, and you're going to see a different layout for that dungeon. On top of that, each dungeon has a dungeon objective. So when you go in, you might have an objective to slay a boss, but you might have an objective to track down 3 fallen idols and disable them. And so the completion objective for the dungeon is unique to each dungeon as well.
And
every time you go into the dungeon, it's going to be randomly generated maps, randomly generated quests or objectives, and enemies and champions. Which means you can just keep doing the same one over and over again, and every time it will feel different.
One of the things I really like when we play is that you go in and you don't know the objective. Like, there's not some magical person at the door telling you, by the way, the reason how you complete this is like you have to go in and discover the objective, which is really fun. And the dungeons actually play really well into our end game, right? Where you now, not only do you have the dungeons that you're doing when you're playing through the campaign regularly for, say, new gear or a particular thing, but at the end, all of a sudden you have nightmare dungeons. Where, did you want to talk a little bit about like the sigils and that?
You can upgrade the dungeons with these sigils to make them nightmare dungeons, and they become more dangerous. Additional affixes are applied to them that make the monsters more dangerous, or can even give you advantages.
Right.
And when you're getting these sigils, you'll get a wide variety of sigils with all kinds of different affixes on them. So there's
I'm wondering if in the in-game shop you can purchase sigils, which then mean you get better rewards from the dungeons. Exactly like Diablo Immortal. Don't do that. Sigils can only be found or crafted.
It's again player choice in which sigils you want to do, and if you get a sigil that is for a dungeon that is not as you don't think is well suited to your class, you just skip that one and do a different one.
Nightmare Dungeons is sort of our take on rifts, and so if you've played the previous, like Diablo 3, there's a thing in town, and you just go to it and opens a portal and off you go, and you're standing in town, going to it over and over, and now we have these Nightmare Dungeons which is kind of like running a rift in a way, but it has a sense of place. So now you have keys, and so Joe has sigils, I have sigils, and we're like, okay, where do we want to go? Like, we have to go somewhere now, and like, okay, let's mount up, get on our horses, and we're going to ride west, and because that dungeon has a particular type of loot that we want to have, or a type of gear that we want to get. And so I love that feeling of place. And
target farming gear.
In town every time.
We know that it's fun to build your character and discover all these powerful builds. And we also think it's really important to have content to test yourself against. So we've really tried to expand the variety of activities. And as Rod said, the game, when you finish the campaign, you might be level 45 or something. Your character level goes up to 100 through Paragon points.
Love that Hydras are back.
You get access to Whispers. You get access to Nightmare Dungeons, other endgame activities that we're still working on. We really wanted you to have a wide variety of things to do, and of course, you've got you've got world tiers that are allowing you to step up make sure that the difficulty of the world stays on pace with the power of your character level. And to unlock those, you actually need to complete a dungeon to access that more difficult content. So it goes back to the idea of making a build, making it powerful, and then testing yourself against some challenge.
And the Paragon point, like, so a Paragon system, if you play D3, you know the Paragon system in Diablo 3, but it was just basically sliders and on a couple of different aspects of your character. In Diablo 4, Paragon is an actual board that, think of it as a checkerboard. It's much more granular than that, but for simplicity's sake, I'll say a checkerboard. And you have to navigate your way by sort of unlocking squares as you move across the board. And each of those squares could be +5 strength or a different ability or something that enhances your skills. And so you're able to click these different boards together and make your own path through. So that's one of the things we really like about Diablo 4 is that even if Joe and I both were creating a barbarian, and even if we both wanted to be whirlwind barbarians as an example, we could still have completely different builds. And that's what really makes, I think, Diablo 4 unique, is that we're not ending up at the same place. You know, there's a lot of games that when you're done, everybody's the same, and that's not the case in D4. And so I think people are going to love the new Paragon system. That idea is so much more richer than we've ever had before as a Paragon system. And it really, when you see what it can do to your character, you really want to find that optimal path across the board. And then when you go to connect the next board, you can actually rotate it to pick the path you want to go through. Like, it's a really cool system.
Now, for the most part, everybody hated that they used the Paragon or used the word Paragon because D3 Paragon. It's like just, yep, click, 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 click. Everybody is the exact same. He is spot on with that. I will say, the initial look when they did their quarterly update of the Paragon system, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. I think it's going to feel the exact same. But now seeing the new board, how vast it is, obviously the design of it looks really, really good. And if there really is skills in those nodes and different ways you could take it, and every whirlwind barbarian could be different, that will be a game changer. That would really be something awesome.
There are also glyphs that you can socket into the board, and you can upgrade those by completing Nightmare Dungeons. So there's really a lot of diversity available within the builds themselves. And because Diablo 4 as a live service will be continuing to balance the game so that we can make sure that there are always a variety of builds that are viable and not focused into only one.
There's a lot that we're looking at doing for post-launch. Like, we have a lot of plans when you think about what in terms of seasons, but not the way that seasons are for Diablo 3. There's a sort of a twist on that. And we do want to continue to expand the world and tell new stories and continue to tell stories that are happening within Sanctuary. So I think people are going to be really excited about, you know, what kinds of content and features and things they'll be able to do post-launch. Because that's one of the things we really learned a lot. I think a lesson from Diablo 3 is that we've had, you know, like I said, we've had great success with the seasons in Diablo 3, where still millions of players come back and play for hundreds of millions of hours, but we know that they want more, and that's what I feel great about what, you know, so much Diablo is coming now, is that we're actually able to sort of help satiate some of the fan desires. And what they're really going to get at Diablo 4 is not only a great launch, but a very rich post-launch. All right, Joe, thanks for hanging out.
That's the video. Did we really learn anything new? No, not really. Same gameplay. That being said, my excitement for D4 continues to grow. I know D3 had its challenges, even though I put in thousands of hours to it. I know Diablo Immortal has been a disaster. I know Blizzard has had a PR nightmare over the past year. I totally get it. Some people have completely written off the game. Some people say I'll never support Blizzard again. I get it. I respect that decision. Will D4 be great? I don't know. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. How do you feel? Let me know in the comment section below. If you didn't hear, I've officially started a Patreon. Thank you to the first 40 members that have signed up. Become an instant ARPG VIP and get Patreon exclusive content at the first link in the description. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Check out my Discord. It is also linked in the description. Hopefully you were entertained or at least learned something. Aaron, out.